In a world that often feels like it's teetering on the edge of disaster, what could go wrong? By Scott Z. Burns offers a thrilling exploration of the human race's deepest fears and its audacious quest for survival. This Audible original delves into the complex dynamics of a global pandemic, both the actual virus and the chaotic mess of human decisions that followed. It's a story of ambition, humanity, and the intense unpredictability that comes when science, politics, and human nature collide. This gripping narrative offers a behind-the-scenes look at the making of Contagion, the movie that eerily predicted the pandemic of our time and the ways the reality of our response to such a crisis falls far from what we'd like to imagine. The hook of what could go wrong lies not just in the terrifyingly realistic portrayal of a viral outbreak, but in the deep questions it raises about humanity's preparation, or lack thereof. Burns takes the listener on a ride. That's not just about viruses and vaccines, but about human survival instincts, government mismanagement, and the dark comedy that sometimes arises when people find themselves faced with an existential threat. The audiobook opens with a candid reflection on the origins of the Contagion movie, where Burns shares his personal connection to the 2011 film. He reveals how the film's terrifyingly accurate portrayal of a pandemic spread, from a bat in Asia to a global emergency, was based on meticulous research and consultations with experts in medicine, epidemiology, and global politics. Burns recounts how this research led him to the humbling realization that what's depicted on screen in a crisis is often far from the real and unglamorous response that unfolds when a disease begins to spread uncontrollably. From there, Burns takes the listener into the present day, drawing unsettling parallels between the fictional world of Contagion and the reality of COVID-19. He shows how the world's response to the pandemic mirrored many of the issues portrayed in his film: a lack of preparedness, the scramble for resources, and the breakdown of trust between governments, scientists, and citizens. This shift from Hollywood drama to real-world catastrophe adds a layer of urgency and dark humor to the narrative. Burns isn't just writing about the virus, he's writing about the systems, both societal and governmental, that shape how we face such unprecedented events. What makes What Could Go Wrong particularly compelling is Burns's deep dive into the political chaos and the personalities that made key decisions during the pandemic. He offers listeners an intimate look at the heads of state, public health experts, and ordinary people who had to navigate a landscape of uncertainty. Through interviews, research, and his own reflections, Burns lays bare the human elements behind the cold statistics of infection, rates, and death tolls. It's the human drama that makes the story of this pandemic so gripping. The fear, the second-guessing, the attempts at control, and the inevitable failures. Burns explores the concept of what could go wrong from the personal to the global level. At the individual level, the question emerges in the form of, how do we protect ourselves? And how do we keep our families safe? The audiobook offers candid accounts from medical professionals on the front lines of the pandemic and the chaos they witnessed. He highlights their heroism, but also their frustrations with the systemic failures that undermined their efforts. On a broader level, Burns critiques the global system's handling of the crisis, offering a critical look at how every major country responded in its own way, often in direct opposition to the advice of experts. The audiobook also delves into the cultural factors that made the pandemic harder to manage. Burns tackles how misinformation, political polarization, and cultural denialism slowed down efforts to control the spread. In a world where experts are often distrusted, and social media amplifies every opposing opinion, the book raises poignant questions about what happens when the world is asked to trust science and collective action. Another key element of the book is its analysis of the societal inequalities that COVID-19 laid bare. Burns does not shy away from examining how marginalized communities were disproportionately affected by the pandemic. From healthcare workers to low-income families, the story sheds light on the cracks in the system that allowed these groups to bear the brunt of the disaster. This intersection of public health and social justice adds a sobering layer to the narrative, making the book not just an exploration of a viral outbreak, but a critique of the inequalities and how such crises are addressed. While the narrative is heavily focused on the impact of the pandemic, Burns provides a balanced view, interspersing moments of levity. His witty commentary and occasional irreverence bring a touch of humor to an otherwise intense topic. The audiobook doesn't shy away from the absurdities of human behavior during the pandemic, whether it's the rush to stockpile toilet paper or the conspiracy theories. that took hold in some quarters. Burns demonstrates the fine line between humor and horror, between a public health emergency and a global crisis that revealed the best and worst in humanity. As the story unfolds, listeners are given a stark view of the ethical dilemmas that arise when lives are on the line. What are the right choices in a pandemic? When every decision seems to have dire consequences, Burns presents a variety of perspectives. From public health officials trying to make decisions on the fly to the ethical challenges faced by pharmaceutical companies, whose vaccines became both a symbol of hope and a source of political contention. These decisions didn't happen in a vacuum, and Burns illustrates how politics, personal beliefs, and economic interests all shaped the world's response to the pandemic. The final chapters of What Could Go Wrong examine the lingering effects of the pandemic on global society. As countries emerge from lockdowns and vaccinations become widespread, the question of what comes next looms large. Burns ponders the long-term impact of the pandemic on global economies, politics, and social structures. What happens when a world has been forever changed by a disease? And what does it mean for the future of public health? This forward-looking perspective brings a sense of closure to the narrative, while also leaving listeners with a sense of unease about the challenges yet to come. Ultimately, What Could Go Wrong is a story about the fragility of human systems and the unpredictable nature of global crises. Burns' deep dive into the events leading up to and following the pandemic paints a picture of a world that is both interconnected and fragile, where small mistakes can have large consequences. But it's also a story about resilience and the ability of individuals and societies to rise to the occasion, no matter how messy or disorganized the response may be. For anyone looking to understand the depths of the pandemic, the failures and triumphs of global systems, and the psychological toll such crises take on society, What Could Go Wrong is a must-listen. It's a powerful, compelling, and at times heart-wrenching journey that reminds us all of the importance of being prepared for the unexpected, because as Burns so aptly demonstrates, when things go wrong, they can go terribly wrong.